Namo Amitābha Buddha, dear friends. Tonight, I'm grateful you are here. Let me ask you something gently. Have there been nights when your body is tired, but your mind refuses to rest? Moments when a quiet uneasiness sits in your chest, even though nothing wrong seems to be happening? Or times when you feel strangely familiar with a feeling, a place, or a sorrow without knowing where it came from? Many people in this country live strong, responsible lives. You carry your work, your family, your worries, your promises. And yet, when the lights go off, something inside still feels unfinished, as if your heart is holding more than just today. In Buddhist teaching, the Buddha spoke gently about this. He said that not everything we feel begins in this lifetime. Some patterns, fears, and longings come from deeper habits of the mind carried forward quietly without our permission. Tonight, we are not here to chase mysterious stories or prove who you were before. We are here to understand why your heart feels the way it does, and how, through calm awareness and compassion, you can finally let it rest. So settle in. Take a slow breath. Let us begin very softly by listening to what your heart has been carrying. The heart you were listening to a moment ago. It did not become tired overnight. In America, many people learn very early how to be strong. Strong enough to keep going. Strong enough to work through pain. Strong enough to smile in public, even when the inside feels thin and worn. You wake before the sun. The coffee brews in a quiet kitchen. The phone lights up with messages, reminders, bills, appointments. You move through the day, answering, fixing, carrying, work deadlines, health worries, children who need you, parents who are aging and far away, or aging under the same roof. By evening, your body finally sits down, but your mind does not. At night, when the house grows still, something subtle begins to stir. A pressure behind the chest, a tightness in the throat, thoughts looping like a radio that won't turn off, not loud enough to panic, not clear enough to explain. Just a quiet exhaustion that seeps into the bones. Many people here say the same thing in different ways. I don't know why I'm so tired. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. My life looks fine from the outside. And yet, something feels heavy. This kind of tiredness is not weakness. It is not failure. And it is not something that can be fixed by sleeping longer or working harder. In Buddhist understanding, this is the tiredness of the heart that has been holding too much for too long. I remember sitting once in a small meditation hall on the West Coast. Outside traffic moved steadily. Inside the room was simple wooden floor, a single candle, the faint scent of incense lingering in the air. An older woman sat near the back. Her posture was straight, but her shoulders were tight, as if she had been bracing herself for years. After the meditation, she spoke quietly. "I've raised my children here. I worked 2 jobs. I took care of my parents until the end. I'm grateful, but I'm so tired. At night, my mind won't let me rest. No dramatic story, no crisis, just a life of doing what needed to be done." The Buddha spoke often about this kind of weariness. He taught that suffering does not always come from obvious pain. Sometimes it comes from habitual, holding the mind, gripping responsibility, fear, and identity again and again, until it forgets how to soften. In simple words, Buddhism does not say that life exhausts us. Clinging exhausts us. Clinging to being the reliable one. Clinging to being strong. Clinging to the idea that if we let go, everything might fall apart. Over time, these patterns settle deep. They become automatic. They feel personal, but they are older than this week, older than this year, sometimes older than this lifetime. The Buddha described the mind as a stream flowing from moment to moment, not a solid self, not a fixed soul, but a movement shaped by habits. When certain habits repeat long enough, they feel like who I am. In truth, they are simply what has been practiced again and again. This is where many people misunderstand Buddhist teachings about rebirth. It is not about believing you were someone specific before. It is about recognizing that the way the mind holds life can travel forward if it is never seen, never rested, never released. So when you lie awake at night with a heaviness you cannot name, it may not be because something is wrong with you. It may be because your heart has learned over a very long time to stay alert, to stay responsible, to stay on guard. In America, we praise independence. We praise resilience. We praise those who push through. But the Buddha gently reminds us of something else. Even the strongest mind needs moments of surrender, not giving up on life, but giving up the belief that you must hold everything alone. Some people notice this tiredness showing up in the body, a shallow breath, a clenched jaw, hands that never fully relax, even under the blankets. Others notice it emotionally, a sadness with no clear story, a sense of guilt when resting, a feeling that peace must be earned, not received. These are not personal flaws. They are learned responses. And what is learned can be unlearned. The Buddha did not teach these truths to make us analyze ourselves endlessly. He taught them to offer relief. He showed that when awareness gently touches a habit, the habit begins to loosen. When compassion meets exhaustion, the heart begins to trust again. Tonight, we are not asking you to solve your life. We are not asking you to understand everything you've been carrying. We are simply acknowledging this. The strength that helped you survive may no longer be the strength that helps you rest. And that is okay. There is another kind of strength the Buddha spoke of, a quiet strength, the strength to pause, the strength to soften, the strength to let the heart put something down. Just for this night, as you continue listening, you may notice your breath changing slightly. Maybe your shoulders drop a fraction of an inch. Maybe the mind pauses between thoughts, even briefly. These are not accidents. They are signs that the heart recognizes safety. And in the next moments, we will begin to look gently, very gently, at how these deep patterns form, and how with calm, awareness, and kindness, they can begin to release. Nothing to force, nothing to fix. Just a tired heart, finally being allowed to rest. The quiet strength that allows a heart to rest begins with understanding what the Buddha was truly pointing to. When many people hear the word rebirth, they imagine a solid soul, a fixed someone traveling from one body to another, carrying a name, a face, a story. But the Buddha spoke much more gently and much more precisely than that. He did not say, "You have a soul that moves." He said, in essence, there is a flow. Picture a late evening by the ocean. The shore is calm. The moonlight stretches across the water in a soft, silver path. Waves rise and fall one after another. Each wave looks separate, yet none of them exist on their own. The Buddha used this kind of image to describe the mind, not a permanent self, not a fixed identity, but a continuing movement of consciousness shaped by habits, intentions, and reactions. In Buddhist teaching, this is called the mind stream, a stream that flows from moment to moment, day to day, and yes, life to life, without ever becoming a solid thing you can point to and say, "That is me." This is important because it changes how we understand the tiredness you feel. If there were a solid soul carrying guilt, fear, and responsibility forever, that would be terrifying. But the Buddha did not teach that. He taught that what continues is habit. The habit of worrying before sleeping. The habit of tightening the chest when uncertainty appears. The habit of staying alert even when the body begs to rest. These habits do not come from one bad decision. They are formed slowly, patiently, through repetition. Think of how you learn to drive. At first, every movement required effort. Hands tense on the wheel, eyes constantly scanning. But over time, the body learned. The movements became automatic. The mind learns the same way. If you grew up needing to be responsible early, if you learned that rest must be earned, if you carried fear for others long enough, the mind learned to stay awake even when it is safe. And when the Buddha spoke of rebirth, he was pointing to this truth. If a habit is never seen, it keeps going. Not because someone is punishing you, not because you failed a spiritual test, but because habits do not stop on their own. This is where Buddhist teaching becomes deeply compassionate. The Buddha did not say, "You are broken." He said, "You are conditioned." Conditioned by causes, conditioned by experiences, conditioned by repeated ways of responding to life. And what is conditioned can be gently unconditioned. I once spoke with a man named Michael at a small temple outside Seattle. He came every Sunday, always sitting near the door. During meditation, his shoulders stayed lifted as if bracing against an invisible weight. One evening, after a bell rang, its sound lingering in the room like a slow breath, he said quietly, "I don't know how to relax. Even when nothing is wrong, my body acts like something is about to happen." No trauma story followed. No dramatic explanation. Just a simple truth. A monk nearby smiled softly and said, "The mind learned this for a reason. We thank it, and then we teach it something new." That is the heart of Buddhist practice. The Buddha taught that consciousness is not housed inside the brain like a possession. He described the brain more like a receiver, and the mind like a signal shaped by intention. When intention is tight, the signal feels sharp. When intention is fearful, the signal feels restless. When intention softens, the signal calms. This is why Buddhism places so much emphasis on intention. Not belief, not identity, but the direction of the heart. You may notice this when you sit quietly. A thought appears, then another, then an emotion follows. Each one arises and passes. None of them stay, yet they influence what comes next. The Buddha described this process as dependent arising. One moment conditions the next, not fate, not destiny, just cause and effect unfolding. So when someone feels a heaviness they cannot explain, Buddhism does not rush to label it mystical or strange. It simply asks, what habit of the mind is asking to be seen? Sometimes that habit formed this year. Sometimes it formed decades ago. And sometimes the habit is so old that it feels like it has always been there. This is where people touch the idea of past lives, not as a story to chase, but as a recognition that patterns can be very old. The Buddha never encouraged obsession with who we were before. He encouraged freedom from what keeps repeating now. Because the danger is not that the mind continues. The danger is that it continues unconsciously. The relief comes when awareness enters the stream. Awareness slows the current. Kindness warms it. Stillness allows it to settle. And when that happens, something remarkable occurs. The body begins to trust. The breath deepens without instruction. The jaw loosens. The mind pauses, just long enough to taste peace. This is not enlightenment. It is something much more accessible. It is the moment the heart realizes, I don't have to carry everything anymore. In America, where life often rewards constant effort, this teaching is quietly radical. It says, you are not your productivity. You are not your worries. You are not even your past habits. You are the awareness that can witness them and gently let them go. As you listen now, perhaps notice the space between breaths. Notice the way the body responds when nothing is demanded of it. This is the mind stream resting for a moment, not stopping, just flowing more softly. And from this softness, real change becomes possible. In the next part of our time together, we will look at how certain signs and feelings are not meant to define you, but to guide you toward release. Nothing dramatic, nothing to prove, just the quiet work of helping the heart finally learn that it is safe to rest. The softness you may be feeling now is not an ending. It is an opening. When the mind begins to rest, it often starts to notice things it has been quietly carrying for a long time. Not as clear memories, not as dramatic visions, but as sensations, emotions, and subtle signals that ask very gently to be seen. Many people call these signals past life signs, strange fears with no obvious cause, recurring dreams that feel older than language, a sudden pull toward a place, a culture, or a time you've never lived in, at least not in this life. But the Buddha offered a wiser, kinder way to understand them. He did not teach us to chase signs. He taught us to listen to suffering. In Buddhist understanding, these experiences are not proof of who you were. They are messages from the heart about what still needs care. Think of how the body behaves after a long day. You sit down and suddenly the ache in your shoulders appears. It was there all along, but it waited until you were still enough to feel it. The mind works the same way. When life is busy, these signals stay quiet. When things slow down, especially at night, they rise. A fear of water, that tightens the chest. A dream where you are running, searching, calling out to someone you cannot find. A sudden wave of sadness when you hear a certain kind of music or see an old photograph of strangers. These are not accidents, but they are also not commands to dig into the past. They are invitations. In Buddhism, we understand this through the teaching of karma, not as fate, not as punishment, but as emotional momentum. Karma means action. Action of the body, action of speech, action of the mind. When certain actions repeat long enough, they leave impressions, like footprints in soft earth. If fear was practiced again and again, the mind learned fear. If vigilance was practiced again and again, the mind learned to stay alert. If love was interrupted, the heart learned to brace itself. Over time, these patterns feel personal, but the Buddha gently reminds us they are not who you are. They are what has been practiced. I once spoke with a woman named Laura at a meditation center in Northern California. She had a recurring dream that began the same way every time. She stood in a crowded place, calling someone's name, her voice growing hoarse. Just before waking, her chest would tighten and tears would come without warning. "I don't even know who I'm looking for," she said, "but the feeling stays with me all day." She wondered if it was a memory from another life, but what truly mattered was something else. When she began to sit quietly with the feeling, not analyzing it, not labeling it, the dream changed. The running slowed, the calling softened. One night she found herself sitting down in the dream, placing a hand on her heart. She woke with damp cheeks and a strange sense of relief. The Buddha taught that when suffering is met with awareness and compassion, it loosens its grip. Not because we solve its story, but because we stop running from its feeling. This is why many so-called past life signs begin to soften when treated gently. A fear that is hugged instead of resisted. A dream that is welcomed instead of chased. A pull towards something unknown that is respected, not romanticized. From a Buddhist perspective, the mind does not want answers as much as it wants safety. When safety is missing, the mind searches backward and forward. When safety is present, the mind rests in now. This is especially important in American culture, where people are taught to analyze, diagnose, and fix. There is value in understanding, but there is also wisdom in allowing. The Buddha taught that clinging to meaning can become another form of suffering. If we say, "This must mean I was someone else," the mind tightens. If we say this feeling needs to be understood, right now, the heart tenses. But if we say, this feeling is welcome, something opens. In Buddhist practice, we sometimes speak of the heart like a child. When a child is upset, they do not need an explanation first. They need to be held. These signs, fears, dreams, attractions, are the heart's way of reaching out. They are not demanding belief. They are asking for kindness. You may notice that when you stop trying to interpret them, they change on their own. A dream becomes less sharp. A fear loses its edge. A longing becomes quieter, less urgent. This is not because the past has been solved. It is because the present has been cared for. The Buddha never encouraged people to dwell in stories of former lives. He encouraged freedom from the patterns that bind the heart now. Because liberation does not come from knowing who you were. It comes from seeing how you are holding this moment. If a fear arises, you can place a hand on your chest and breathe. If a dream lingers, you can thank it and let it pass. If an attraction pulls at you, you can notice it without needing to follow. This is how karma unwinds, not through force, but through understanding. And understanding in Buddhism is always paired with compassion. In many temples across America, you'll see people light incense, not to ask for answers, but to offer a moment of respect to what has been carried. A small bow, a soft chant, a pause long enough for the heart to settle. You don't need to know where a feeling came from to care for it. You don't need to remember a past life to be kind to the present one. As you listen now, notice what your own heart might be asking for. Not explanation, not proof, just permission to soften. These signs are not here to define you. They are here to guide you toward release. And in the next moments, we will explore how the Buddha showed a clear, practical way to respond, not by chasing the past, but by gently transforming the habits that no longer serve you. No rush, no pressure, just the steady work of letting the heart feel safe enough to finally let go. The permission to soften is not the end of the path. It is the doorway. When the heart feels safe enough to open, a natural question arises quietly without urgency. If these patterns are old, how do they change? The Buddha's answer was simple and at the same time very deep. He did not offer a single technique. He offered 3 doors each, opening into the next. Mindfulness, concentration, compassion. Together, they form a gentle way to transform karma, not by fighting it, but by guiding it home. Imagine a lotus pond at dawn. The water is still. Mist hovers just above the surface, A bell sounds once somewhere in the distance, and the ripples move outward in slow, widening circles. This is how change begins in the mind. The first door is mindfulness. Mindfulness is not watching thoughts like a judge. It is noticing like a friend. You may recognize the moment it appears, a familiar tightening in the chest, a thought that says something isn't right, a memory brushing past the edge of awareness. Instead of pushing it away, mindfulness simply turns toward it. You might feel your breath pause, your shoulders lift, your jaw clench. Nothing dramatic happens, just the quiet recognition. This is what is here. The Buddha taught that suffering grows strongest when it is unseen. When a pattern runs in the dark, it feels personal, permanent, and powerful. When it is seen, it begins to loosen. A man named Daniel once shared something during a retreat in Arizona. He had spent years waking at the same hour each night, heart racing, mind alert. Doctors found nothing wrong. During meditation, he noticed a pattern. The moment his body relaxed, a wave of fear appeared, as if rest itself were dangerous. Instead of analyzing it, he stayed, breathing, watching, letting the fear rise and fall. He later said, "It was the first time I didn't try to fix myself." That is mindfulness. The second door is concentration or steady calm. When mindfulness sees clearly, concentration gathers the mind. It is like placing a bowl under a dripping tap. The thoughts still come. The feelings still move. But the mind no longer chases each one. You may notice this when you sit quietly and follow the breath. At first, the breath feels shallow, uneven. Then, slowly, it lengthens on its own. The body begins to trust. In Buddhist practice, concentration is not forceful focus. It is ease, like sitting by a fireplace watching the flames dance without needing to control them. As concentration deepens, something important happens to karma. The old habit tries to pull you in and finds no traction. A thought arises. There is space. An emotion follows. There is room. The chain breaks. This is why the Buddha taught that awareness plus steadiness weakens old patterns, not by erasing them, but by interrupting their momentum. Many people in America approach meditation as another task to master, but the Buddha offered it as a place to rest. Rest is not laziness. Rest is wisdom. The third door is compassion. This is the door many people skip, and without it, the path feels dry. Compassion is what allows the mind to release its grip on suffering. Not compassion as an idea, but as a feeling tone, a softening behind the eyes, a warmth in the chest, a willingness to say, "This is hard, and I'm here." The Buddha taught that karma changes fastest when met with kindness, because kindness removes the fear that keeps patterns alive. Think of a child waking from a bad dream. If you question them, they cry harder. If you hold them, they settle. The mind is the same. A woman named Susan once came to a temple in Southern California after losing her husband. She sat through the chanting with her hands folded tightly in her lap. When it ended, she whispered, "I don't want to be strong anymore." The monk beside her did not offer advice. He placed a cup of warm tea in her hands. Her fingers slowly relaxed. Her breath deepened. Tears came not sharp, but warm. This is compassion at work. In Buddhist teaching, compassion is not weakness. It is the courage to stay present with pain without turning. When compassion enters karma, shifts direction. Fear no longer needs to shout. Memories no longer need to intrude. The heart feels accompanied. This is why these three doors must be walked together. Mindfulness sees the pattern. Concentration steadies the mind. Compassion allows release. Without mindfulness, we remain lost. Without concentration, we remain scattered. Without compassion, we remain tight. Together, they change the quality of the mind stream. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. You may notice that after practicing in this way, certain fears feel less urgent. Certain dreams soften. The pull of old habits weakens. This does not mean your past is erased. It means your present is free. In Buddhist communities across the United States, you will often see people bow, not to escape life, but to meet it with humility. A bow says, "I see this moment clearly." A bow says, "I am willing to be gentle." As you listen now, you may feel a quiet readiness, not to change everything, just to try something different. That readiness is enough. In the moments ahead, we will move from understanding into simple practice ways to open these three doors in your own life, especially at night when the heart is most tender. Nothing complicated, nothing forced, just a calm invitation to let mindfulness watch, let concentration hold, and let compassion do what it does best. Teach the heart that it no longer has to carry the past alone. The heart that has learned to soften now needs something very simple, very kind, a way to close the day without carrying it forward. Night arrives quietly. The house settles. Lights dim one by one. Outside, the world keeps moving, but inside your room, there is a small pocket of stillness waiting for you. This is where the ritual begins, not as a rule, not as a duty, but as a gift you give yourself before sleep. Imagine setting your phone down, face turned away. The screen goes dark. The room grows a little quieter. You sit on the edge of the bed, feet touching the floor, or lie back gently, letting the mattress receive your weight. 10 minutes is enough. Less than a coffee break. Less than the time spent replaying worries that never resolve at night. The Buddha taught that the mind carries the day into sleep the way hands carry water. If the grip is tight, the water spills. If the hands are relaxed, the water rests. So the first step is not spiritual at all. It is physical. Let your shoulders drop, not all the way, just a little. Let your jaw unclench, the tongue resting softly behind the teeth. Notice how the body responds when it realizes nothing is being asked of it. Place one hand on your chest. Feel the warmth beneath your palm, the steady rhythm that has been keeping you alive all day without asking for thanks. Take a slow breath in through the nose, not deep, just honest. And let it out through the mouth as if you are fogging a mirror. Again, in and out. As the breath slows, you may notice thoughts trying to step forward. Plans, regrets, tomorrow's responsibilities lining up like unfinished paperwork. Do not argue with them. Do not invite them either. Simply notice them pass like headlights on a distant road. In Buddhist understanding, this moment is powerful. It is where karma begins to loosen. Not because you solved anything, but because you chose not to continue the habit of holding. Now, gently bring a phrase into the mind. If you are comfortable with Buddhist language, you may softly repeat, Namo Amitābha Buddha. Let the sound move with the breath, unforced, unhurried. If you are not drawn to chanting, you can use simple words of kindness. May I be safe. May I be at ease. May my heart rest tonight. There is no correct version, only sincerity. As the words repeat, something subtle begins to change. The breath finds its own rhythm. The chest softens. The mind has something gentle to rest against. In many Buddhist temples across America, people end the day this way, not asking for miracles, not bargaining with the future, simply offering the mind a place to settle. A man named Robert once shared that he began this ritual after months of sleepless nights. He worked in healthcare, carrying the weight of other people's pain home with him. At first, nothing dramatic happened. The thoughts still came. The worries still whispered. But one night, as his hand rested on his chest and the words repeated quietly, he noticed something new. His brow smoothed. His breath dropped lower into the body. The urgency faded. He didn't fall asleep right away, but for the first time in a long while, he felt unburdened. This is the second part of the ritual, allowing the heart to release what does not need to travel into tomorrow. Now bring to mind the day that has just passed. Not the details, just the feeling of it. Perhaps there were moments of tension, moments of impatience, moments where you wished you had done better. The Buddha taught that before sleep, the mind is tender. What you offer it now shapes how it rests. So gently say inwardly, I did what I could today. I allow this day to end. If guilt appears, notice it. Place it beside you, not on you. If sadness appears, breathe with it. You do not need to solve it tonight. In Buddhist practice, this is called letting the arrow fall. The arrow has already landed. There is no need to keep pushing it deeper. Now comes a quiet act of generosity. In your heart, offer the calm you are cultivating to someone else. It might be your parents who carried you once, your children who depend on you now, someone you love who is struggling, or even someone you have difficulty with. You might say, may this peace touch them. May they be safe tonight. This offering is not symbolic. It changes the quality of the mind. The Buddha taught that generosity, especially at the level of intention, softens karma quickly. It shifts the focus from me and my burden to we and our shared humanity. As you do this, notice how the heart responds. Often there is a warmth, a slight ease, a sense of connection that feels larger than your worries. This is not imagination. It is the nervous system recognizing safety through compassion. Now, return attention to the breath once more. Shorter now, quieter. If the body wishes to turn on its side, let it. If the eyes wish to close fully, allow that too. You may feel the edges of thought dissolving like mist, thinning under morning light. Except this time it is evening and rest is approaching. The Buddha never asked us to conquer the mind. He asked us to understand it and to treat it kindly. This 10-minute ritual is not about becoming a better person. It is about becoming a gentler one. Night after night, this small act teaches the heart something new, that it is allowed to put things down. that it does not need to carry yesterday into tomorrow, that rest is not earned, it is received. As sleep approaches, let the final breath be easy. Let the final thought be kind. Whatever remains unfinished can wait. Tonight, the heart has done enough. As the night deepens, there is a quiet truth that begins to reveal itself. The body knows how to let go long before the mind agrees. Your breathing has slowed. The room feels softer around the edges. Thoughts come more slowly now, like leaves drifting on still water. This is the moment when the Buddha's teaching becomes very intimate. He reminded us that sleep is a small rehearsal for letting go. Each night, the mind loosens its grip. Each night, identity fades just enough for rest to arrive. And yet, so many of us try to carry everything into sleep. The unfinished conversations, the worries about money, the ache of family conflicts that never found the right words, the quiet guilt of not doing enough, not being enough. We lie down, but we do not put anything down. The Buddha taught that suffering continues, not because life is heavy, but because the heart keeps holding what it was never meant to carry forever. There is a simple image often shared in temples across America. At the end of a long day, a traveler removes a heavy backpack before entering a home. They would never sit at the dinner table with the weight still on their shoulders. Yet the mind does this every night. It brings the whole day into bed, and sometimes it brings years. So now, in this gentle space before sleep, we practice something very old and very kind. We practice not taking anything with us. Notice the feeling of the mattress supporting your back, the way gravity holds you without effort, the way your hands rest, no longer gripping anything. If there is tension somewhere, do not command it to leave. Simply allow it to soften by one small degree. The Buddha did not ask us to drop everything at once. He asked us to release what we can when we can. Now bring to mind one thing you have been carrying today. Just one. It might be a worry about your health, a concern for your children, a quiet fear about the future, or a regret that keeps replaying when the lights go out. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to fix it. Just notice how it feels in the body. Where does it sit? In the chest, the stomach, the throat. Place your awareness there gently, like setting a warm hand on a tired shoulder. And now imagine setting that burden down beside the bed, not throwing it away, not denying it, just saying, "You don't need to come with me tonight." In Buddhist teaching, this act is not avoidance, it is wisdom. The Buddha spoke of impermanence not to frighten us, but to free us. Everything that arises will pass. This includes today's worries and even this life itself. This understanding is not meant to create distance. It is meant to create peace. When we see clearly that nothing can be carried forever, the heart naturally softens its grip. This is also why the Buddha taught that we do not take our possessions, our titles, or our stories with us beyond this life. What continues is not the baggage. What continues is the quality of the mind. A mind trained in fear moves forward with fear. A mind trained in kindness moves forward with ease. So what you practice tonight matters, not for punishment or reward, but because it shapes the way the heart travels moment to moment, breath to breath. In many Buddhist homes, there is a quiet habit before sleep, a pause, a bow, sometimes a single candle lit and then blown out, not as superstition, but as a reminder. Nothing is being taken with me. Everything can be released. I once sat with an elderly man named Thomas at a small temple in New England. His hands trembled slightly as he held a string of prayer beads. His breathing was slow, deliberate. My life was busy, he said, always planning, always preparing. Even now, my mind wants to keep working. He smiled faintly and added, but the nights taught me something. Every night, I practiced dying just a little. He wasn't speaking of despair. His eyes were clear, his shoulders relaxed. He meant this every night. He practiced letting go of the self that needed to control. And in that letting go, peace grew. The Buddha taught that death is not the enemy. Clinging is. When we cling to identity, fear arises. When we cling to outcomes, anxiety follows. When we cling to the idea that we must hold everything together, the heart grows tired. But when we release, even briefly, the mind tastes freedom. This is why the practice of dedication or gentle offering comes naturally now. In your heart, you may wish to say something simple. If there is any goodness in this moment of calm, may it support my parents. May it support my children. May it support those who are suffering tonight. You are not sending energy outward. You are widening the heart. The Buddha taught that generosity of intention dissolves self-centered fear. It reminds the mind that it is not alone. As you offer this quiet wish, notice what changes. The chest may feel warmer. The breath may deepen. The sense of isolation may soften. This is not imagination. This is the nervous system responding to safety and connection. Now, return once more to the feeling of being held by the bed, by gravity, by the night itself. Nothing is required of you now. Sleep is not something you do. It is something that happens when resistance ends. If thoughts arise again, let them pass like clouds crossing a wide sky. You do not need to follow them. The Buddha taught that the wisest thing we can carry forward is nothing extra, not yesterday's pain, not tomorrow's fear, not stories about who we must be, just this breath, just this moment. And if this night were to end like all nights do, with a gentle surrender into rest, that would be enough. You are not leaving anything unfinished by sleeping. You are practicing trust. Trust that life can continue without your constant effort. Trust that the heart knows how to heal when given space. Trust that nothing essential will be lost by letting go. As the mind drifts closer to sleep, allow yourself this quiet truth. You do not need to carry today into tomorrow. You do not need to carry this life into the next. What truly matters knows how to remain without your grip. Rest now. The night will hold you. The letting go you are practicing now is not an ending. It is a turning. As the night carries you closer to rest, a deeper understanding begins to settle quietly without argument. It becomes clear that the most important question was never, "Who was I before?" but rather, "How am I meeting this moment right now?" The Buddha was very direct about this. He did not ask his students to search the past for identity. He asked them to look at choice. Choice is where karma lives. Choice is where freedom begins. You can feel this truth in small, ordinary moments. The moment when irritation arises, and you pause before reacting. The moment when fear tightens the chest, and you breathe instead of running. The moment when exhaustion whispers, "I can't do this anymore," and you answer with kindness instead of pressure. These moments do not look dramatic from the outside, but inside, something shifts. The Buddha taught that karma is not a story written long ago. It is a direction being chosen again and again, not once, but now. In American culture, people often feel trapped by labels, who they were supposed to be, what they should have achieved by a certain age, the roles they are expected to play: provider, caretaker, problem solver. These identities can become heavy. They begin to feel permanent. But the Buddha offered a different view. He said the self is not a fixed thing you must defend. It is a process you can relate to wisely. Like a river that bends when it meets a stone, the mind can learn to move differently when it meets understanding. I once sat with a woman named Grace at a small Zen center in the Midwest. She had spent years searching for meaning, reading, studying, analyzing her life. One evening, after a long period of silent sitting, she opened her eyes. Her face looked softer, as if something had melted. "I think I finally understand," she said quietly. "It's not about figuring myself out. It's about how I treat myself when I don't." That insight did not come from remembering another life. It came from meeting this one honestly. The Buddha taught that liberation does not come from perfect knowledge. It comes from right relationship with experience. When pain arises, do you fight it or listen? When fear appears, do you obey it or soothe it? When the heart feels tired, do you push it or allow it to rest? These choices shape the mind far more than any memory ever could. This is why, in Buddhist teaching, even one moment of genuine compassion carries great power. A single breath taken with awareness, a single reaction softened, a single night where the heart is allowed to rest without guilt. These moments leave traces, not heavy imprints, but gentle ones. They teach the mind a new habit, and habits practiced patiently change the direction of the stream. Some people worry that if they stop analyzing the past, they will lose something important. But the Buddha reassured us of the opposite. He said that when the mind stops chasing identity, it gains clarity. When it stops clinging to stories, it finds peace. You do not need to know who you were to live wisely now. You do not need to remember a past life to break a painful pattern. You do not need certainty to be kind. In fact, kindness works best without certainty, because kindness does not wait for proof. It responds to what is present. This is why the Buddha emphasized intention so strongly. Not intention as a goal, but as a tone. The tone of gentleness, the tone of patience, the tone of care. As you fall asleep tonight, you are shaping that tone. The way you let the breath move, the way you allow thoughts to pass, the way you choose not to carry everything forward. These choices matter. They matter for your body. They matter for your relationships. They matter for the future moments you will inhabit. And yes, they matter beyond this lifetime too. Not because you are securing a better identity, but because you are cultivating a kinder way of being. The Buddha taught that the most precious rebirth is not into another world, but into a clearer moment. A moment where the heart responds instead of reacts. A moment where awareness replaces habit. A moment where compassion interrupts fear. You may not notice these changes right away. They often reveal themselves slowly. You wake one morning feeling less tight. You respond to a familiar trigger with a little more space. You find yourself forgiving more easily others and yourself. These are signs of true transformation, not mystical, not dramatic, but real. As the night continues to hold, you allow this understanding to settle without effort. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not failing. You are practicing something very old and very human, learning how to live with less struggle. The Buddha did not promise that life would stop presenting challenges. He promised that suffering could end, not by changing the world, but by changing how the heart meets it. Tonight, you have already chosen something important. You chose to listen. You chose to pause. You chose to be gentle with yourself. That choice is enough. As sleep approaches, let the final feeling be one of trust. Trust that you do not need to know everything to be at peace. Trust that you do not need to carry every answer. Trust that how you live this moment is shaping something good. Not who you were, not who you will be, but who you are choosing to be right now. And for tonight, that choice is rest. The choice you have made to rest, to soften, to stop searching for answers is already working. The night feels quieter now. Not because the world has changed, but because your grip on it has eased. Your breathing has found its own rhythm. The space between thoughts has widened. Even the edges of the room seem less sharp, as if the darkness itself is offering comfort. This is the simple truth the Buddha wanted us to understand. Peace does not come from remembering. Peace comes from releasing. You do not need to recall who you were. You do not need to solve the mystery of where you have been. You do not need to carry insight, wisdom, or understanding into sleep. Tonight, none of that is required. The Buddha taught that the mind suffers when it tries to hold what is meant to flow. Thoughts flow, feelings flow, lives flow. Rest happens when we stop interrupting that movement. Imagine a lake at night. The surface is dark and still. The moon's reflection does not struggle to appear. It rests there naturally because the water is calm. Your mind is the same. When you stop stirring it with effort, clarity appears on its own. This is why the Buddha did not promise awakening through effort alone. He pointed toward cessation, the stopping of unnecessary struggle. Not stopping life, stopping resistance. As you lie here now, notice how little you actually need to do. The body knows how to sleep. The heart knows how to heal. The mind knows how to settle when it is allowed. If a thought arises, let it float past like a cloud crossing the moon. You do not need to follow it. You do not need to finish it. If a feeling surfaces, sadness, tenderness, or even relief, let it be exactly as it is. Nothing needs correction tonight. The Buddha often spoke about non-attachment, but he did not mean indifference. He meant trust. Trust that life continues without your constant management. Trust that goodness does not disappear when you rest. Trust that what truly matters does not require effort to survive. In many Buddhist homes across America, there is a quiet custom before sleep, a moment of gratitude, not for success, not for answers, but for having made it through the day. You might feel that gratitude now, not as excitement, but as a gentle warmth behind the chest. If it feels right, you may wish to offer a simple thought. May this rest support my parents. May this rest support my children. May this rest reach those who are suffering tonight. You are not sending anything outward. You are letting the heart expand just enough to include others. The Buddha taught that this widening of the heart, this wish for shared peace, is one of the most powerful ways suffering dissolves. Fear shrinks when the heart opens. Loneliness softens when connection is remembered. Now, allow that openness to turn inward. You have carried enough. You have done enough. You are enough. There is nothing you need to achieve in sleep. Sleep is not a task to complete. It is a place to arrive, and you are already here. If awareness drifts, let it drift. If the breath becomes shallow, let it be shallow. If the mind slips gently into dreams, allow it. The Buddha never asked us to stay awake forever. He honored rest as part of the path. Rest teaches the mind something effort cannot, that safety exists without control. Tonight, you are practicing something very deep, even if it feels very simple. You are practicing letting go of identity, letting go of time, letting go of the idea that you must remember, fix, or improve anything right now. This practice carries its own quiet merit, not because it earns you something later, but because it reduces suffering now. And that is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. As the night continues, let the final moments of wakefulness be kind ones. No more questions, no more searching, no more reaching backward or forward. Just this breath, just this stillness, just this permission to rest. If you find yourself waking again later in the night, return gently to the breath or to a simple phrase of kindness. May I be at peace. May this moment be enough. And if sleep comes quickly, let it take you. You are not leaving anything unfinished. You are not missing anything important. You are doing exactly what the heart needs most. Tonight, you do not need to remember who you were. You do not need to prepare for who you will be. You only need to rest. May your sleep be deep. May your heart be light. May the quiet goodness you touched tonight continue without effort into tomorrow. Namo Amitābha Buddha.